Whether you're raising baby chicks for the first time or it's just been a while, it's a really good idea to get everything assembled that you're going to need before they arrive. It's really important that baby chicks stay safe and warm from the second you get them, so assembling everything in advance is a really good idea. I know myself in the spring before my chicks are going to be coming, I make sure that I get everything out, make sure that nothing needs to be replaced or added, just to make sure I'm ready. So the first thing you need when you're raising baby chicks is something for them to live in, called the brooder box. The most common is a large plastic tote like this. You can use a stock tank, kind of like you see at the feed stores. You can use a large galvanized tub, cardboard boxes. Not great, they get wet and they're a fire hazard, but something that's large and going to keep your baby chicks contained. If you're handy, you can build a large wooden box. You want to make sure that it has a cover, because baby chicks can flutter and flap and get out of something this size, probably by the time they were a week old. So you want a lid. I just cut a hole in the top of the plastic lid and then attached some 1/2-inch welded wire with zip ties, so I have a nice cover that still lets air in. You can use a piece of screen, an old window screen, whatever it is, but you just want to make sure that your chicks stay in and pets and kids stay out. Something like this is probably large enough for, oh, I don't know, 8 or 10 chicks, but they do grow pretty quickly, so make sure that you have something larger in mind, a puppy playpen or a regular playpen, a kiddie pool, although they can get over the side of that, so that would definitely need to be covered. But just keep in mind that they will grow. Chicks need to be in the house for about 8 weeks before they get their feathers in and they can keep themselves warm, so you're looking at birds that are about the size of maybe a pigeon or a dove. So just keep that in mind when you're setting up your brooder. But for baby chicks, newly hatched, this will be great for 6 or 8 chicks. So you want to put something on the bottom. The plastic is too slippery for their legs. Newspaper, same thing. It gets slippery, especially when it gets wet. They can end up with a condition called spraddle leg, in which their legs spread apart before their muscles are strong enough to keep them together, and that can cause them problems walking. So you want to put something down that's not going to be slippery. But what I like to do is start with a couple sheets of newspaper. That will absorb any water mess or liquid spills. On top of that, I put rubber shelf liner. You can buy it by the roll, you know, at the home goods stores. It's nice and grippy, and it's also easy to wash. So I have a piece that I've already cut. What I do is I cut a couple pieces the same size, and then when I clean the brooder out, I hose off one piece, let it dry, use another piece, and I just keep swapping them back and forth. So that's a nice grippy surface now for the baby chicks. I leave it just like this for the first couple days. After that, you can add some shavings, although I find them terribly dusty. So instead, I just like to add some clumps of dirt and grass and things in here for them to not only nibble on the grass and go through the dirt, but also it makes a little bit more of a surface to absorb any water or manure or anything. Your baby chicks also are going to need heat. They need to be kept at about 95 degrees the first week, 90 degrees the second week, 85 the third week, 80 the fourth week, and so on until it's warm enough for them to go outside. So what you want to do is attach a heat source shining into your brooder box. You want it on one side so they can be under the heat when they're cold, move away from it if they get a little bit too warm. So you need something like this. This is a heat lamp with a clamp. This has a white bulb in it. It's better to use red heat bulbs because it makes the chicks less aggressive. Nobody wants to be in a tub with a white light shining on them all the time, so here's a red heat lamp. I usually like to keep an extra on hand in case it burns out overnight. So you've got your heat lamp with your red bulb, and the easiest thing to do is to take a mop or a broom handle and clamp this to the handle, and then use some weights to weight the handle down on one side here, and then you can just raise and lower the light as needed. I wouldn't actually clamp it to here, although you can this is going to keep them really warm. So while it's low, you can just clamp it like that. Your chicks also need food and water. So they're going to need a little chick size water and a chick size feeder. These come in metal or plastic. Either is fine. and you just screw a regular mason jar to it, either pint or quart. The quart are a little large and they can tip over a little bit more easily. So I do prefer actually using the pint jars, but the quart fit as well. Your chicks need water 24/7. You want it to stay clean. Another reason I don't like to put shavings in the brooder is because they'll kick the shavings into the water. So if you just have the shelf liner in the dirt, they don't tend to do that. But you want clean water, room temperature. Cold water can chill them, and chickens don't like to drink warm water. For the first couple of days, it's not a bad idea to add a little sugar to it, a little honey, molasses, just something to give them a little bit of extra energy. And then after that, just plain water is fine. I do like to add apple cider vinegar to my chickens and my chicks' water. For the grown chickens, I add a tablespoon per gallon a couple days a week. For the baby chicks, I just add a few drops just to get them used to the idea of it. And it also is really good for their respiratory systems. Chicks also need food. So this is a little chick feeder, and chick feed comes in a crumbled form. You can get medicated or non-medicated feed. The medicated feed helps protect them against coccidiosis, which is the #1 killer of baby chicks. It's fairly common. I don't use the medicated feed, and I have not had any problems with coccidiosis. If you manage their environment, keep it fairly clean, but not terribly clean, because you do want them to be exposed to some bacteria and pathogens in the environment. I also think because I add clumps of dirt and grass to their brooder, that's bringing in a little bit of probably coccidiosis, because most chicken runs do have it in it, and it's exposing them to small amounts until their immune systems are strong enough to fight it. So they need chick feed. I also try to keep their feeder full 24/7 while they're babies. Once my chickens are old enough to go outside, they only get food and water outside during the day. They don't get it at night. But when they're babies, food and water 24/7 at the other end of the brooder box from the light. So they can sleep under the light, and then their food and water is at the other end. I also like to add a dish of dirt. Chickens like to take dust baths, and your baby chicks will love to take baths in little containers of dirt. I keep small takeout containers. Just fill them with some dirt from the yard and put them in here. The chicks will eat some of the dirt, which also acts as grit, which helps them digest their food if you're feeding them anything other than the chick feed, and it also gives them something to do. I like to put some branches in my brooder. If you can find some that are curved, or I like to make little perches out of dowels. You can screw a dowel kitty corner into your brooder box so the chicks can hop up on it, practice perching. Just gives them something else to do, something to keep busy, and it helps them to practice their adult behaviors. So other than that, a safe box, newspaper shelf liner, feed and water, the heat lamp, and a cover, your chicks should be safe, they should be warm, they should be healthy. It's great to take them out a couple times a day, not for a real lot of time, but it helps to handle them when they're young, because then they'll get used to you. They'll be more friendly as they get older. But remember that chicks get cold really fast, so only take them out for a few minutes. If you have little kids handling chicks, make sure that they sit on the ground, maybe put a towel on their lap, let the chicks sit on their lap. The kids shouldn't walk around carrying the chicks, because if they drop them, that could obviously be disastrous for the chicks. You'll know if the chicks are too warm, if they are at the far end, kind of holding their wings out and panting, and if they're too cold, they're huddled under the light, peeping. Happy chicks should just be kind of milling around. They do sleep a lot, so don't get worried about that. They are babies after all. But that's how you set up a brooder box for baby chicks. And as I said, depending on where you live, the time of year, they should be in the house for 6 to 8 weeks. If you live in a warm climate and you get them a little later in the season, they probably can be out sooner than that. And I do like to get mine outside on nice days, especially when I'm cleaning the brooder. It does help to have 2 boxes, so you can switch them to one while you're cleaning the other. I don't clean it every day, but you don't want it to be wet. You definitely don't want your chicks to get wet and chilled, but it's not a bad idea to not clean it quite as often, because it's a little bit more like a real world environment, helps to boost their immune systems. So that is your brooder box setup, and now you're ready for your baby chicks.